Hello, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the Gerety Awards UK Jury Insight Panel. My name is Kemp and I'm Editorial Director of Creativebrief, and we are very grateful to partner with Gerety to host today's discussion. Named after Francis Gerety, the copywriter who coined the slogan, "A diamond is forever," the Gerety Awards creates a new benchmark for creativity, redefining the standard to which advertising has traditionally been held. The purpose of Gerety is to show which advertising campaigns resonate most with a female audience. That's all advertising, not just advertising aimed at women. And advertisers around the world will be paying attention to the winning entries selected by the jury. We know who makes the work shapes the work. So what can we learn from the Gerety Awards about making that work better? With me today, I have some of the best brains in the business who are going to lift the lid on some of the trends shaping the work today and tomorrow. So I have Dillah Zakbah, who is Creative Director at Uncommon Creative Studio. Her forte is in innovation, experiential, social, and entertainment. She was a pioneer team member of a tech startup that was acquired by Google in Southeast Asia. Off work, she is an angel investor for female-led startups, a mentor for young female creatives, and an amateur skateboarder. Elizabeth Akingbade is a creative at the Romans. She is an award-winning creative in the fashion and advertising industries. She is also the founder of Yemzi, which is a vibrant resort wear brand, and she also contributes her expertise to other businesses through art direction in advertising and PR. Regan is Executive Creative Director at McCann London, and she was also the UK Jury Chair for Gerety. She has produced a list of award-winning work that also promotes inclusive beauty. She's a mama mentor for She Says, a mentor for Lollipop Mentoring, and was a speaker for the Creative Equals online speed mentoring session at Adweek. Paula Hochberg is a creative director at Adam&EveDDB. And before this role, Paula led the Southern European brand and creative studio at TikTok. She's worked in Paris, Madrid, Buenos Aires, and Brussels for numerous global clients, and her work has received international accolades, including a Grand Prix from the Cannes Lion Festival. And last but not least, we have Debbie Ellison, who is Global Chief Digital Officer at VML. Debbie pioneers transformational business growth through people-first tech solutions. She has been named a Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Top 100 Chief Digital Officer, a Top 10 Inspirational Leader in the HSBC Ethnicity Awards, and a Yahoo Finance Empower Ethnic Minority Executive Role Model for 3 years running. Thank you so much for joining us today. What a panel. I feel really, really lucky. So to kick off, I'd love to start with you, Regan, because you opened the judging, reminding us that actually, yes, we needed to be positive, which I think at this stage in 2024 is a reminder that we all need. So looking back on the judging and the process that you had doing that, what did the Gerety Awards show you about what's working in the work today? I mean, should we be feeling positive about advertising right now?
I mean, if it's talking about the state of advertising, not the state of the world, then yes, the answer is yes. But I really feel like the Gerety Awards truly highlights what's flourishing in advertising, and it does that by showcasing work that doesn't just capture our attention, it also drives meaningful conversation. So it shows us that, yes, we do sell some things, but advertising isn't just about selling. It's about storytelling that resonates universally. And it's pushing boundaries, initiates change. And I think it's clear from what we saw, hopefully my other jurors will agree with this, that we can harness that creativity to support and amplify genuine, impactful messages that doesn't just work. It's not just work, it stands out, right? It resonates at a deeper level, fosters positive change, and connects stronger with our audience, because that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to inspire the industry and all the people we're talking to that we can think bigger and bolder. So positive, I say a heck yeah to that.
I love that. Thank you, Regan. And Debbie, I'd love to bring you in here because Regan's raised that lovely point that actually meaningful storytelling and selling things are not mutually exclusive pursuits, which sometimes is something that is happening in the narratives around purpose today. And I'd love to get your view because there was a real breadth and depth of work presented. So what were the themes that surprised you when you were judging?
I think one of the themes that surprised me the most was that I think over the last year or so, we've all been talking in the industry about a move from purposeful brand marketing more into humor and joy, of which we absolutely saw some of that in the entries this year. But I still think if I look back at the entries that we were judging, we still saw our fair share of creativity with a conscience. One of my favorite pieces of work was from DP World, where their move to ship frozen food in containers. Bear with me, guys, because I do think this is a great one. Ship frozen food in containers set at -15 degrees instead of -18 drove not only their sustainability agenda, but that of the wider cold supply chain industry. And I do think this is a piece of work that we all should look at, that looks at how creative innovation can help any brand deliver meaningful impact, not just the big brands that we know and we love, but actually kind of any brand, and even brands that we don't know of or aren't front of mind. So whilst we have been seeing that move across our industry, I still think that we all want to Regan's point, we want to deliver really great storytelling for brands, but we also want our brands to play a more meaningful role in our lives, in our communities, and in the world that we live in. And I think that's going to be, it's a trend that we saw this year, and it's still going to be a trend as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I love that you kicked off with that example, because sometimes actually the great storytelling is just changing the narrative for the industry as a whole, saying actually you can just
absolutely,
just like we wash our clothes at a lower temperature, we can freeze our products at a lower temperature too. It's just really shows the power of creativity. Dillah, I'd love to bring you in here. What stood out for you when you were judging the work, and particularly thinking about the Gerety Awards is quite unique. You walk into a Gerety judging room, you know you're in a Gerety judging room because it's judged entirely through the female lens. I mean, what stood out for you in that judging process this year?
Yeah, it was really awesome. And, just being around females and, just knowing the personality traits and characteristics that, us females have, that some people might call it a challenge. I do think it's very much a superpower. And similar to what Regan and Debbie mentioned, there's this understanding of narrative and emotional depth that I believe from a female lens that does bring a unique perspective when it comes to understanding storytelling, from incorporating deeper emotional narratives across the spectrum and even character development. And I felt that it has led to a really more richer, more nuanced ability to judge the different creative outputs. Even by the way, we dissect some of the case studies, right? It wasn't about being impressed by what I would call the peacocking effect of which case study have more glitz and glamour. It was really refreshing when there are sometimes that after viewing a case study, we step back to almost think about what the brief could be and how they answered it, and the budget and things like that. Those are the kind of things that, I have been in other creative award shows judging panel, and sometimes it was about a chest beating competition, not just between the judges, but between the works we're judging and things like that. But everyone was just so fair, so considerate, and had level-headed and fair conversations, that we approached all entries with this superpower of us, that hopefully it will really be reflected, that when the winners will be announced, that we really considered from a human-centric view and not just about riding on some award season trends.
I love that idea of looking beyond the award season trends, and it's what I really enjoy about the Gerety is I always see so much work that I haven't seen, even when I've seen a lot of other award shows. And that's such an interesting point. Paula, I'd love to bring you in here because we're at this really unique moment in our collective history, because we are, in some ways, we're still emerging from the pandemic. And I'll be honest, advertising, I don't think I've ever been in a Gerety judging session and not had a cry. I think advertising has been making us cry for decades, but there were some really poignant campaigns and moments in the judging. And I wonder what you think. Do you think we are seeing more emotional connection? Because perhaps we crave that humanity, that human connection a bit more? Or am I just being a bit soft?
There was definitely a lot of emotion in the room. I actually think that all advertising throughout history has had the intention or should make you feel something. That's the whole purpose of it. So it should always make you feel something. But I feel like if we were craving something, it wasn't so much the emotion that makes you cry, but we were all really leaning towards things that made us laugh or smile. I think in the room, I feel that was the trend. Even though, yes, there were things that really made us feel emotional in the, in the sense of like some tears were shed. I think the things that made us excited or that we talked more about were the things that made us smile. And I think that's what we're craving in the world that we're living now, a bit more humor in advertising. And I think that also creates an emotional connection with the viewers. So you can create really powerful storytelling through humor and not just poignant stories, I feel.
That's such an interesting reminder, because I think 2024 is a year where everyone is seeking some light relief from the world. So that's a really interesting point. Thank you, Paula. And Yem, I'd love to bring you in here with a very unlight point. I'm going to be totally straight with you. So there's some new data from the DA&AD in 2023. Just 9% of chief creative officer roles are held by women. And I wondered, with that stat in mind, how important do you think it is to look at the work and who's actually behind that work through a fresh lens? Because even to Paula's point on humor, I'm thinking sometimes there's so many layers and levels of humor in the female experience that we're seeing now in television and film that perhaps we're not seeing in advertising yet. I mean, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I think it's a shame that so few women of senior position, like C-suite position, are in power. I just hate that fact. But I don't judge work based on whether a woman's behind it. I think if the work's great and the woman's behind it, that's a bonus for me. I always judge work based on craft and stickiness. So there's an acronym I learned at school called success with one S. So it's like simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional stories. So I always look at those kind of markers to judge work. I think it's important for great work to be out there, and it shouldn't be that we're looking at it from the perspective of, is it a male or a female that made it? But if we like it, it's great, and it's better that a female has made it because there's not enough of us in industry. So that's my take on it. I'm actually intrigued to know whether the judges here, because it's my first time judging actually, but after seeing the work, did you go away and then do the research to find out whether a woman made it, or did you just kind of leave it as that was a great piece of work and I appreciate that? But yeah.
Did the work connect? That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Did it feel something, whether it's love, hate, humor? It doesn't. It does help if there's a piece of work that's like really culturally relevant in some way, and I look back and I go like, at least the people who were the idea people behind that came from a place of truth. But also that truth and that storytelling can come from different places, whether that's production. It doesn't just have to be the idea people. So that's when I start to look, but I didn't go back and look to confirm that a woman or a man had made something.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting as well through the lens of the entries to the Gerety Awards, because I think some people still only enter work that is aimed primarily towards women, which is a bit of a gap there as well. I love that acronym as well, Yem. I'm a big fan of frameworks, so thank you for sharing that with us.
That one's from Chip and Dan Heath, if anyone doesn't know it.
No, I had not heard that before, and I love it. I'm going to steal that. Shifting the discussion slightly to think about culture and some of the trends we saw in the work, we saw some really lovely examples of brands really shaping culture in really different ways. There was this lovely Aldi stock cube campaign, and then the stock cube was put in a tiny handbag, that tiny handbag trend that someone like me who carries around more stuff than Mary Poppins just cannot get on board with, but would love to. And McDonald's doing some great animation. Regan, I'd love to get your view. Do you think And I'm going to use the buzzword, so apologies in advance, but is marketing becoming more agile? And how is that impacting the creative work?
All right, I'm going to go in, use the buzzword also. We are becoming more agile. And I mean, agile in just the way we create. I think both of those, well, all the examples you gave, the Aldi, the Knorr, sorry, I'm American, I'm going to say Knorr, cannot say Knorr, and McDonald's, we're reacting quickly to cultural trends that were going on. And I think and consumer behaviors, to be said. And I think if we were kind of going back in the day, it would have taken a long time for us to actually get to the point where that was being released, rather than us being able to react, adapt, and kind of put it out. So I think we are being agile in that we can be more culturally relevant, but I just need to put this out there. We need to not just talk the talk that we're being culturally relevant, and make sure we're walking the walk. So making sure we're doing things in the right spaces for the right brand, and that we have a cultural relevance there, and that we're just not kind of creating one. I do think Aldi's, like making affordable, I don't know if is that the word I can't say, but I'm not part of the brand. So I, could be an influencer saying it. But having things like that and allowing the consumers to jump on board and kind of be the champions of that brand and push that trend, allowed something magical to happen, where our consumers became part of the idea and made that idea and allowed that idea to grow and live, because people do care about brands. I mean, as much as we don't want to admit it, but we do have brands that we love and we enjoy and we go like on the journey with. And if they kind of talk to us in a way that makes us feel something, we're willing to be mavericks and advocates for that brand. So I do think us being able to be agile in like getting ideas out there quickly and then testing them and then seeing what works and what doesn't work, like that to me means we can like have less stakeholders along the journey, and the idea becomes more real in its pure form. And that is awesome.
I love that. And there was another brand that gave us a really great example of a campaign that really was brought to life by its consumers and living in the real world. And that was Marmite. Full disclosure, I'm obsessed with Marmite's advertising, it's just fabulous. And it's just such a great culture shaping brand. Hate Marmite though, love their advertising. So Paula, I'd love to bring you in here. How do you ensure from a creative perspective, because it was so clear that some ideas, they live in a PowerPoint presentation, and some ideas they live and breathe in the world. How do you do that? Share the magic.
I think I'm also a Marmite hater, by the way, but I also love the advertising. I think what happens with Marmite is really unique because they've got such a long-lasting, strong platform. It lives in everyone's minds throughout the year. So Marmite is not a brief. Marmite is something that every creative has in their minds all the time because they know, love it or hate it. So I think having a really, really strong brand helps because people already know what it is about. People already have that in their heads. So creatives, again, they're not waiting for the brief that comes from Marmite. Whenever there's something that happens in culture, whenever something pops up, whenever they see an article, like for example, the scanner one where you could know if your baby was a hater or a lover came after the team saw an article that said that you could eat something and then a scan showed if your baby liked it or not. Immediately they thought, oh, this is amazing for Marmite because they had it in their head. So that's the way. It's like literally not waiting for the brief, but living in your daily life and like just remembering it when something amazing happens. And the other thing is what Regan was just saying, just be making sure that you're quick, and that as a brand team as well, Marmite are really open to being fast and reactive and listening to what's happening in culture and not waiting months for the PowerPoint to be perfect. And, having a million stakeholders help as well, like not having those, steps, but going for it and being really brave, I think is something that helps when you're trying to do something culturally relevant. And finally, just creating work that is for people and not for the industry. I always say this, but I think like a lot of the time we're just looking at each other. What did this agency do? And we're just looking at what others are doing and creating work for ourselves. And when you start looking at what people actually react to and not what the advertising industry reacts to, then you get better work out there because the right people are reacting to it, not just us in our rooms talking about whose work we're jealous of within another agency.
I love that. That's such a lovely reminder, Paula. Thank you. And shifting the discussion slightly, but still actually work that's really created for people rather than the industry. I think perhaps the industry has taken this very binary approach to purpose, where purpose is overdone or it's the worst mistake a marketer can make. It's very sort of all or nothing. And this year's entries, they really showed a more nuanced approach. Brands like Chevrolet highlighting the devastating impact of Alzheimer's, and Canon just creating this beautiful exhibition, which really brought photography to life for the blind and visually impaired. Debbie, I'd love to get your view. Do you think we're seeing a more holistic approach to purpose in advertising, and in that way it's purpose that really connects with people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there was a dry eye, Regan, in the judging room. I mean, like, there are definitely a few entries that really hit the heart, and I think that is important. And I've long believed that, you know, the power, the brands that brands should use their power for good. And there were several entries of which you've spoken about, Nicola, that really highlighted how brands are using purpose and how they're developing their brand experiences to be more inclusive. I think when executed well, you've spoken about when executed poorly, but when executed well, I think there is a real modernity to that approach, right? That when you really understand some of the challenges of marginalized communities, and when you bring those experiences to bear as a brand. And I think the work, we saw that specifically with the work for Canon, and it was a way to really highlight how you could use 3D printing to create this exhibition so that the visually impaired and blind communities could experience an exhibition like that in a way that has never been done before. And I do think this move towards creating more inclusive experiences beyond just a TVC is something really powerful, not only just for those marginalized communities, but actually for all of us, so we can get to experience some of those challenges that are being faced. So I love to see that shift in some of the work this year, specifically, as I said, highlighted by the Canon exhibition. But I do think the win for brands is finding an authentic role for the brand and the product. And I think that's where the challenge is are we telling a story that is a really heartfelt, meaningful, purposefully driven story, but doesn't have any resonance with the brand or the product? Or is the brand and product, and I think this is where the genius is the brand and the product really intrinsic to the storytelling? And do we believe it as consumers? Do we believe that story is authentic for the brand and product? And I think when it is, that's where you see the win. And where it isn't, I think that's where it starts to jar, because it might be a great story and we might have all shed a few tears, but actually, is it doing the purpose of building the brand? And if it isn't, then we're actually not helping ourselves by helping that brand become more powerful so that they can do more good in the world.
That's such an interesting point, and particularly with the authenticity in mind. Yeah, I'd love to bring you in here to build on that, because it definitely feels like there is some change, and whether it's brands suggesting that we refrigerate products or freeze products at different temperatures, there's these big holistic ideas now. Do you think we are at a stage now where a growing number of brands are recognizing the power of inclusivity, as embracing these big ideas to really drive creativity, or is it a bolt-on afterthought sometimes?
Yeah, I'd say we're definitely in that era. Like, brands are embracing inclusivity to drive creativity, and that shift reflects like a broader recognition that diverse voices and perspectives are important, and it makes more resonant campaigns. I think that can't be denied. We've seen that across the board. I think inclusivity not only helps brands authentically connect with their wider audience, and show different, sorry, I kind of repeat myself, but different, sorry, I'm a bit nervous on this call, please excuse me. I would say that I really like Dove's Code My Crown campaign, because for me that showed authentic, like a problem of Black women who are not seen in games and they should be seen, and by allowing brands to actually fix a problem, they're opening up to a wider audience of female players like myself, or my daughter who's 4 years old and she's seriously just got into gaming, and I wouldn't want her to play a game where she couldn't look like herself and see all her beautiful features. So by being authentic, they're not only, you know, reaching a wider audience, but they're helping to show that progression, that social progression that we need to see in brands.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's such a great example, the Code My Crown campaign, and you've just beautifully brought to life what authentic looks like in creative work, because it really resonates. So thank you. And Dillah, I'd love to bring you in here to just build on Yem's point there, because we did see some great campaigns in gaming culture. And it was interesting to me, probably because I write and read too many advertising headlines, but we've had all these really dramatic headlines about AI and AI creative excellence. And there wasn't actually a lot when it came into the work in terms of use of AI. What's your view? Do you think that we're anywhere near AI excellence yet in creativity? And how's that going to impact creativity moving forward? Just a really small question there, Dillah. Tiny.
What the future of technology would look like. But no, I do agree with you. Like, I had to take a step back, like at the end of the day of the judging, to basically like wonder, like, oh, like, because I use AI almost every day, and also keep trying to like basically sell ideas that have AI integrated with it. I was like, oh, there isn't much in there. Then I had to take a step back, because the work that we are judging are very much in the 23-24 season, and we're right now in the 24-25 season, right? And in the 23-24 season, though AI have been there for a long time, but in the 23-24 season, it's still much an infancy to like most teams, most agencies, most clients. And I do know, like back in the 23-24 season, like, you know, we had business affairs people, legal clients telling us not to use it for public facing stuff. We could only like use it for internal facing stuff, like, you know, the Mid-Journey comms, ChatGPT fact checks, all of those kind of things. And I do feel that when we will be judging the 24-25 season, just like the way that we in the industry basically adapted and like Instagram and social media in 2010-2011, like back then, when it first came out, we know its basic features, but we do not really know how to like stretch and use, you know, its full capabilities and things like that. And even back then, some clients were uncomfortable, like, oh, what, people could comment straight away, you're interacting with them and things like that. And once, like, you know, the more that we understand, which now I think we're slowly getting there, of like how interesting it could be, how we can stretch it. And once, like, even working with business affairs and legal and clients team to be, you know, more be able to like handle and take the risks and things like that, I think AI will be looked at almost like how when oil painting was first introduced. It's a new painting tool, it's a new medium for us to express our creativity and things like that. And I've been following quite closely and seeing how AI have, when being used with AR, or AI when being used with TikTok and things like that. And I think next year, I hope we will get like a lot of exciting AI stuff that hopefully is done from a human-centric way, that being done as a new medium that, you know, could, when used right, could just elevate the playing field of creativity a little bit more.
Thank you, Dillah. You've reminded me that I'm just very impatient. I see the headlines, I'm like, where's the evidence? It's like, oh no, time, it takes time. And I love your painting analogy. That's really, really helpful. So shifting the discussion again to another really overused word in marketing, curiosity. I think one of the things that was really interesting when we were looking at all the work was just the breadth of work and the different styles, the use of animation that you could sometimes see across a single agency, which I think it was really interesting to think about that, because it was really inspiring to see actually in individual agencies having such a wide lens of creativity rather than like one signature style. And Debbie, with that curiosity in mind, I'd love to get your view. What stood out for you and inspired you across the work this year?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, it was such an honor, first of all, to judge all of the entries this year. And also, I just want to say, you know, being in a room of such amazing female talent. So I'm just going to put it out there that it was an amazing experience. And thank you, Nicola, the Gerety Awards for including all of us and myself in that experience. But this year, what I love to see was the work that came to life beyond just TVC and right through to experience, right? So we know that 63% of how a person feels about a brand is how they experience it. And so therefore, if we can broaden that medium of creativity, as Dillah was saying earlier, then it helps make all of our work feel really fresh and exciting, and we are all going to be curious to want to experience it. So take, for example, The Pig Farm by Peter, and that was like almost a very early Disney-like animation of what happens in pig farms, and leveraging that medium of cartoons to relay, I think, what was quite difficult messaging. Or Tramway to Love by BVG, who launched a musical about riding public transport. So like from animation, like, and the different mediums that we saw in animation, right through to like creating musicals, to experiences, to innovation, as I mentioned with DP World, or exhibitions. I think if we look at just the breadth and depth of the type of work that our creative community is developing for brands today, I think that's just so exciting about the future of how we will continue to bring creativity to life for brands. And I just hope that we see more and more of that we're really being more innovative about how we use our different channels available to us, how we use different mediums available to us. You know, Dillah spoke about artificial intelligence. You know, the power of physical experience, I think, absolutely can't go unrecognized. And if you put all of that into a melting pot, that makes me hugely excited. And we just saw some of that come to life in the awards this year.
I love those examples, and Dillah, I'd love to get your build on that, because that melting pot is such a lovely analogy, but we really need to make sure that everyone can chuck their stuff in the pot and create that kind of culture where everyone can push and pull actually to get the best work possible. I mean, as a creative leader, how do you create that stretch to really inspire that scope? Because there was definitely some work where you just thought, wow, how do you get that off the ground? Because the idea is big.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's quite hard. Like sometimes you think that it's like, boom, magic, we come up with creative ideas and things like that. And it's sometimes it's quite hard, because we are all not as just, creatives, but also as audiences. We're just bombarded with ad pollution every day from the moment we wake up, right? And like, why most of them are irritating and annoying to us. Like even when I get a YouTube ad, I'm like, but somebody's actually behind this and things like that. And why it's irritating and something we just want to skip, because it's mostly sometimes not talking to us as humans, and potentially the team behind them were also just following a script. Let's just do this instead of how can we do this differently. And I have this barometer that I set with my teams in every brief that I always start, is that let's do the MBE, matter, better, and entertaining. So that's the M. Does this work actually matter? Would someone share it on their group chat with their family who doesn't work in advertising? The B, does this work actually make the business problem or the social problem much better to understand, better communication, etc. And then the E, entertaining, is this work actually entertaining? Why would a human want to spend time with your brand, and why are we worthy of that 15 seconds of their very hectic life that day? So like the win would be, have a 1 M, a B, or an E, but like the perfect scenario would be having MBEs for all of the work. And so far these have been, really helpful when answering briefs from a more audience-centric way, because we're humans and we need to do humans, and us humans doing something creative for other humans to enjoy and interact with. Like, to be honest, dolphins are the most smartest animals on earth, and they're not doing advertising for us humans because they don't know how to feel for humans. So that's why I feel that down to the question on how to inspire that scope and breadth of creative work with the teams, it's also to think about your teams as humans as well. How can you stimulate them? How can you understand their work environment? How to help them be more inspired and things like that. So it's definitely, to me, it's all about looking at ourselves as humans and how we can communicate and treat ourselves as basically humans and not dolphins. Though dolphins are really cute.
I think we could definitely have some dolphins in some way, at least in some artwork, maybe some you could get the MBE framework with some sort of dolphin backdrop. Thank you so much. And Regan, I'd love to bring you in here because it was really interesting watching the Agency of the Year work through an agency lens and actually really thinking about agency brands and the future of strong agency brands. Do you think the future of a strong agency brand is going to be less about having a single agency style and more about showing that huge breadth and depth of creative work?
Yeah, I think it's all about versatility. And like, you know, getting like the repertoire needs to be deep and creative because brands need to adapt to various markets and different audiences. And there's no one size fits all. And there shouldn't be, especially like creative storytelling. And I think whilst maybe an agency could have more of a visual approach to answering problems in most of their things, and I think there's a couple agencies we're all thinking of right now, but it's still versatile in the way that they go about that visual translation of solutions for the problems that they have. And I think an agency for success needs to be able to demonstrate that they have like the ability, the talent, and the creativity to make sure all those brands are being translated in a unique way, a relevant way, and engaging with their audience, however slow or fast their audience needs to be engaged with. Because sometimes those ways of demonstrating creativity, like there's different ways things can come fast and can visually, maybe that can be interpreted fast, but like things that like long copy, which is kind of, I guess, an old school way of translating something, but sometimes you need to go in deep into that storytelling to get that reaction and really get someone behind the thinking. So I think there's no one size fits all. And I think the more versatile you are, the more you'll succeed.
Thank you so much, Regan. And Yem, I'd love to bring you in here with that versatility in mind. And it's so lovely thinking about that versatility when it comes to craft as well, whether it's long copy or gaming culture. One of the things I love about the Gerety Awards is you always see some unexpected work and you always actually fall in love with some really unexpected work as well. And on a practical level, I'd love to get your view. How do you ensure that you and your teams get the best chance of having that versatility? Like you have that creative curiosity and that culture of open-mindedness.
Yeah, I think for a start, we have to make sure we hire teams that are diverse in ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, identity, physical ability. Like that's the foremost thing we have to ensure. I don't see enough diversity in agencies that I've been in. So I'm an advocate for that. And I think we need to be encouraged to, you know, think about ways to learn in terms of like AI. So I was at the AM partnership at my last job and they invest heavily into AI and how that can shape work, like in terms of editing copy or creating visuals. And it saves, for me personally, it saved a lot of time. Like I've had this amazing idea, but it's like, how am I going to Photoshop this within the next hour, you know? And by knowing how to use the prompts in Midjourney, I can do it so much faster. So I think more agencies have to be future facing in that way, like looking at what technologies they can put into the team, but then also not just like having the resources as well as having the platforms, having trainings, learnings, and actually having spare time to actually learn rather than just constantly answering briefs. So yeah, I'd say that. What else? Yeah.
That's excellent advice. And I love your point around time to learn. I think
Yeah.
it's so difficult to be intentional of taking that time for the most important thing. And Paula, I'd love to bring you in here because one of the really interesting and reassuring actually trends in the work this year was the consistency in which leading brands and agencies are breathing fresh life into long-running partnerships. What do you see as the secret sauce between that enduring creative partnerships in a world of complete chaos, let's be honest?
Yeah, I think that's also not a small question. It is it is complicated. I think there's one important thing that I feel we all have to take into account when we're going into a room and we're working with clients, and that's courage. I think the success of a lot of the work that we saw is that we could see that there might have been difficult conversations behind some of the work, but they actually made it happen regardless. And I think that's something that is really important, just trying to be courageous, bold, not leading with fear. A lot of conversations around, oh, I'm afraid that maybe they're gonna say, I'm scared clients are going to react. I think when the conversations are open and courageous and bold, I think you get the best work and the best partnerships, because in the end, we all just want the best work possible to be out there. I also think a lot of the subjects that we've touched on during this conversation are really relevant, like making sure we're trying to make people feel something, regardless of what it is. I think one piece of work that we've kept mentioning is the PETA Big Pharma work. We didn't know what it was making us feel. It was shocking. It was made us smile, but then kind of gross. And then in the end, you were just feeling bad with yourself a bit. And I think that is successful because it's courageous, because it makes you feel something, even if you don't know exactly what it is. And I think also because it is connected to culture and what people care about. And I think that's also really important to, again, make sure that what we're doing, people will care about it in one way or another, and that is connected with the brand and the brand's purpose and the brand platform. So those are the things that I feel are the recipe for success. But I'm sure if you ask anyone else, they will give you other, elements, because it's such a big question.
Here, I thought the secret sauce was going to be Hellmann's. Come on.
And with no burger, just the empty burger box
Just
with
the
mayo.
empty box with Hellmann's.
A bit of mayo and everything, for sure.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are running out of time now, and with that courage in mind, I would love to put everyone on the spot and just leave our audience with one quick takeaway that they can take back to their desks to perhaps do things a little bit differently in 2024 to create more impactful, effective, and hopefully Gerety Award-winning work that makes us feel something. So Yem, could I put you on the spot first? What would be your takeaway, please?
I'd say maybe just putting unexpected people on a brief. For example, if you've got like football, don't put a man on it, try a woman. Household products, try not to put a female creative on it as well. Just unexpected people involved in projects might create unexpected work.
That's a brilliant tip. Thank you. Dillah, what's your tip, please?
Don't be a hater. Don't be afraid of changes. Don't slack off AI. Don't slack off trends you might find too niche or weird, like the Hellmann's mayonnaise. Like, just pay attention what people are talking to, the kind of hacks and things like that will get you, probably, like, not overlooking those kind of things will get you to the best creative ideas.
That is excellent advice. Thank you. And Debbie?
For me, it's just think about who you're not reaching with your brand experience and be absolutely authentic, but also innovative in terms of how you can include them.
Excellent advice. Thank you. Paula?
Yeah, I was going to say craft. Make sure that you really craft that idea. I think sometimes a brilliant idea, you need to really love your producers. You really need to really get the right people to craft your idea, because sometimes the right music, the right illustration, the right cinematography is going to elevate ideas and make them so amazing. So I think don't forget craft, and really, really like treat your producers and directors and female editors and, composers as like with so much love as you treat your creative team, because that's going to take your idea to the next level.
That's such brilliant advice. Thank you. And last but not least, the final words to our jury president, Regan. What's your takeaway, please?
I would say simplicity in storytelling, making sure that it has a human or brand truth that actually connects with people. So go back and go like, what's the simplest way for us to tell this story, and make sure I feel something, just anything, because that's going to make those stories unforgettable, because as humans, and not dolphins with fins, we want to connect with people's stories.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for this brilliant discussion. We have scanned everything from dolphins to versatility to AI to gaming culture. I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us. And thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. And thank you to the Gerety Awards as well for showcasing work that really makes us feel something and makes a difference. So thank you all.